Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of This Ain't Fake, Brother. It is the 16th of October 2014 and I am joined today by Kenny Murphy. He's back in the saddle. Hi Ken.
I'm trying to work the Jericho gimmick from 2012 when we returned to Did Speak, but it's harder to get away that's going to really come across well on a radio show, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would.
All the people need to know is I've got my light bright jacket on.
That's all they need to know. I would hazard a guess to say that it's not going to work on radio.
No, most likely not.
No, but
my face, however, perfect.
Yes, of course. You got 2 seconds of silence in.
I did, yeah.
Well,
I wanted to see how long I could last before I just caved. Not very long is the answer.
Well, we're very glad to have you back. I say we
so.
on behalf of all the listeners as well. No, you had a good show last week. The ITK soccer guys in.
So I hear, yeah.
Thankfully, they're also really big wrestling fans.
Yes, good. You can. You've got ready-made replacements for me there if I ever get too big.
Yeah,
from the britches.
Which is obviously your plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so it's good to have Ken back, and we're going to resume normal proceedings with the News Raw Report podcast roundup and a classic review. This week's classic review is Spring Stampede 1994 from World Championship Wrestling. So that's fresh in my mind. I just finished watching it.
Did you?
Yeah, I've watched it in a couple of sittings, but just finished it up there. So looking forward to doing that. In the news this week, we had not too many things, but a few of note. Yeah.
Just before we jump into the news, I have devastating news for you.
Okay,
I saw what I thought was going to be the perfect present for you on the strip in Lanzarote.
Okay.
However, they didn't have it in your size. You know the way randomly you'll come across like relatively old wrestling merchandise in like just random like bargain buckets in HMVs in Scotland.
That's right.
Okay, they had these old WWE like basketball jerseys.
No.
From 2006, I think they were from. So like Big Dave Batista, when he still had the little strip and the hair.
Yep.
During his first championship run, they had Rey Mysterio when he was still, gassed to the gills. But they had one of then current TNA. No, he is current on TV. World Heavyweight Champion Bobby Lashley. And I desperately wanted to bring it home for you just because you're either anti-TNA buzz. But the large tab was children's size 12, which even on your diminutive frame was always going to be a tight squeeze.
I would have done my best, man. I would have much like Awesome made a return to Gold's Gym.
I'll be honest, I was negotiating with the shopkeep. I was like, how much is this? And he's like, $12.50, which by strip prices is pretty salty, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I was like, look, you'll get $6 bills, son. And he wasn't taking it, but I mean, I said to him, I'll walk this strip a year from now, and this fucking Lashley thing will still be here, bro. So maybe we'll revisit in a year's time.
Well, that reminds me. So you were in Lanzarote. For those who know, when I went to Gran Canaria in 2010, that's where. Have you seen the Chris Benoit pillows I have? No, it's not that I find any amusement in what happens.
There's a smothering person joke.
No, oh God, of course there is.
I think I have seen one of your Chris Benoit pillows.
Yeah, it was just I just bought it because I couldn't believe that I was able to buy Chris Benoit merchandise in 2010.
In 2010.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Chris Benoit, have you seen the Cruiserweight show on the network?
Excuse me?
The Monday Night War Cruiserweight.
No, I've
given
up on Monday Night Wars, yeah.
Okay, they have Chris Benoit, and he's mentioned in commentary, and he's not mentioned in the Talking Heads, but he is mentioned. They show clips of the Radicals front row, and they say Dean, Eddie, Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Chris Benoit, and there's...
So the narrator refers to him?
No, the narrator doesn't, but they got clips from the Raw, and they've JR referring to him on commentary multiple times.
That's very interesting.
It is. I was glad, because they have Vicky Guerrero referred to the night they showed up on Raw. I just did a UFC one there. The Ultimate Fight Challenge. And she goes, Dean, Perry, and Eddie. She doesn't mention Chris. And I sit there going, don't fucking bullshit me here. But they showed him, doing his headbutt. They showed him sitting front row. Remember he had like a green velour suit on?
I do, yeah.
Something straight out of the
Marshall World Heavyweight Champion.
What? Yeah, he was, yeah.
And I appreciate that. So I just realised there that the reason I was telling the story, the reason I bought those pillows was because it was such a novelty getting them 3 years later. It's closer. That was closer to the actual incident than it is since I got them.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
We ain't getting any younger, brother.
No, we're not. So let's push on ahead then quickly with the news. So Daniel Bryan, supposedly they're saying, okay, now you just have to get the surgery, even though they could have done this earlier, and Mania is looking very unlikely for him.
I would hold him out until after Mania, I think.
Really? I think his first match being back at Mania would actually be huge for the show.
Yeah, but I think it would... Well, it depends. It would overwhelm... First of all, you have to have an opponent for him, which, when I say that, I don't mean Kane. And second, If their goal is to make either Ambrose or Reigns at Mania this year, there's a danger that Bryan will overshadow them. I think Ambrose maybe not, but there would just be a danger. But then I don't know. Part of me wonders if he will be is over. I'm not convinced that he will be.
I definitely think he will, because he's been gone.
Yeah, I ordinarily feel that way, but I myself, I'm not desperate to see him. I don't really miss him that much.
The way I think...
I mean, I do when I watch Raw, yeah, you miss him, but...
I think you do. And I think people are still really, if they're doing all the yes stuff for Brie, I think that they'd go beluga for him.
They do nothing for Brie.
Yeah, but they do that.
Silence.
The way I look at it is, the appeal of Bryan was the fact that the casual fans and the families all liked him, and the hardcore fans really liked him. And I think if they went with Dean as the chosen one, they both get that reception. I don't think they'd be in competition with each other. I think they appeal to both audiences. While I think Reigns is losing favour with the quote-unquote hardcore audience.
Reigns is in real trouble.
Yeah, well, we had a lot to say about the promo on Raw last week.
I didn't see that promo, thankfully.
It's only 2 minutes long. It's worth seeing. Especially retrospectively knowing it was pre-tape, because you're kind of scratching your head.
It really strongly feels like already, the second they turned, you could tell Ambrose had more charisma. He's a more polished performer. He's better in the ring. And it just has that, I go all the way back. I feel it's Lex Luger, Bret Hart. I feel that if you think of 1993, Lex Luger did get over to an extent. People want to whitewash that and say he never did. I think if they went with him at SummerSlam 93 and he'd won the championship, he would have been a moderate success,
I kind of actually agree.
But when they were kind of Bret or Luger for the championship match at WrestleMania in early 94, there was just this groundswell of Bret Hart, he's our guy, we've picked him, we know you're trying to force Luger on us. And I think they should go with what they did then, which was, have those situations where rather Ambrose and Reigns are kind of in a popularity contest, like Bret and Luger at the end of the Rumble with the and see who's there, because I really think it's just not the time to try and force Reigns down a throat unless you want another John Cena. Yeah. And when I say another John Cena, I don't mean the biggest star in the business. I mean somebody who doesn't get the reaction that they want. Yeah, because he's not at that star level that he can get away with that.
That model that you're kind of putting forward that they could use that's 20 years old this year.
I know, yeah. It's nearly 21 years old actually when you think about it, because it was started in 94, wasn't it?
It's true. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Okay, so Justin Roberts was released this week. The word coming out of it was that they were sitting down because his contract had run out. They couldn't agree on a fee and or a figure,
I think
salary.
WWE just walked away and said, okay, we'll let you go.
Yeah, exactly. And then some of the news sites were reporting it was some issue he had with Michael Cole. I've heard nothing about it.
Yeah, yelling him at ringside. I don't know. I wouldn't, I just think if you're in that situation, Cole has his headsets on, so if you're going to try and communicate something to him, you're going to have to shout.
It's very true. That's a very, very good point.
You're not going to whisper something in an arena with 20,000 people when the guys got giant headphones on.
Yeah. Do you see this as a loss? Did you like him? I kind of warmed to him over the last few years.
I'll miss the way he says John Cena, but
a lot of people don't.
no, honestly, I won't miss him. He's just he's just generic. He's the way I always, for some reason, he comes to mind. Ted DiBiase is like their perfect cookie cutter of what they wanted a wrestler to be in like 2010 when they, you know what I mean?
Yes.
What they wanted to look like, work with, all that. Justin Roberts is that kind of polished face they wanted for television to be their ring announcer, and I resent him for that.
He couldn't outthink the Fink though.
No, but he was, to be fair. If you've seen him in the Talking Heads on the network, he seems like a good dude and he's knowledgeable and stuff. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, there's so many. We discussed this off the air. I mean, it's just such a. Unless you've got some of the caliber of Howard Finkel, which he wasn't, it's just a very. You can just put anyone in there and they'll do a decent job.
Okay, the first show we did, or maybe the second show we did when we started the podcast, the network numbers were about to come out. We did predictions, so we're back here again. Another quarter is gone, and
last time we spoke with this, I predicted they were going to finish the year on 8 or 9, and you're saying 1.2 million. Remember that?
Oh Jesus! Okay, well you're
rethinking.
I might be backtracking.
Okay, what's your thoughts?
Okay, so for those who don't know, yeah, there you go.
So this is gonna
30th. This is the first one that's going to include the international buys.
But most likely, no, definitely not the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, no, definitely not. Well,
Include Canada, which we hear has done better than expected.
But the United Kingdom won't have it by then.
No, I know, yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
So this is going to include the international buys that they have in territories that are network accessible.
Ones
right
that
now.
are international as well as ones that are listed as domestic but international as well.
Okay, grand. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to go with 9,750.
975,000.
Yeah.
Okay. It's consistently underperformed to such a degree that I feel like when people's subscriptions expired at the end of March or the beginning of October, since 20% of people had found a way to illegally quit, that the amount of people who just would have said, I'm not bothered subscribing again, I think that's got to be another 20% easy. So I think that would have brought your quote-unquote domestic number down to around 500,000. So I think maybe 800.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll remember them for 2 weeks from now. Speaking of the network, there wasn't much great shakes.
Oh, yeah, actually, speaking of the network, that's something I wanted to discuss with you. It's shite. It's really, really very disappointing. The Monday Night War show has been dreadful. It's really, really awful. It's just, they had 2 or 3 episodes that kind of were their usual rough version of history, and then there was 6 episodes about how great WWE is, which was one about Steve Austin, one about Mick Foley, one about DX, one about how they screwed Brett, all this stuff.
It really seems they don't have the manpower to go and have people search the archive.
This stuff was in the can before the budget cuts.
Before the cuts, really?
Yeah.
Well, they just didn't have, weren't ours, because one would think if they have a lot of these WWE clips and they've got career retrospectives where they can take a lot of the Brett episode, the Mick episode, the Austin episode. But if they just had enough people to go and research WCW footage, and they could just do, a WCW episode, a WWE episode, back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not, unless the second half of the series is going to be one dedicated to DDP, one to Sting, one to Goldberg. But it doesn't look like it is.
And it's just, I find, just the complete retelling of history, just the fictional account. It's just, like, I was excited for the show. This is the one thing that I really thought, okay, that's going to be something I can sink my teeth into. You know what I mean? Because they're good with their talking heads. The documentaries, you look at, say, the Paul Heyman one, the CM Punk one. They're in depth, and they when you see the people they have on there, they have like Kevin Sullivan, they have Stu Sachs from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. They've done the interviews.
Sure.
It's just they've chosen to portray a certain story. Like even the Cruiserweight one, it tells you the story of how great the Cruiserweights were, and it tells you that the WWF were bringing in the light heavyweights and they weren't great. But they have to end it by showing you that these guys came to the WWF and they were much better used. And they have Dean Malenko in clips of this, and it's like anybody who tries to convince me that Dean Malenko was better used or Perry Saturn was better used in the WWF than WCW is going to have a seriously difficult time, because they just were not used well. And it showed, it tried to give you the idea that Gregory Helms or Shane Helms was used better in WWF than WCW, and they show the clip of him being The Rock on Raw in 2003, which was just a flash pin that meant nothing.
He was featured more in WWE. He's one that I would give, but then again, he had a longer run in WWE.
Yeah, he did, but it's just...
But in general, the majority of the cruiserweights who you can attribute to WCW success were just the prelim and mid-card on SmackDown from 03 to 04.
Yeah.
02 to 04.
Yeah.
So it's farcical. Now, something I do enjoy in the network, or that I would enjoy, is if I hadn't done the Monday Night Wars myself, I would be enjoying watching those old Nitros. Have you been doing that?
No, because I've been going through the clashes and the pay-per-view, so I'm up to the summer of '94. So for me, I'm just going to wait till I get there. If you know what I mean.
No, that's good. Yeah.
This is another thing I wanted to. We do our classic review each week, and I was thinking we need to vary it up and maybe watch like 3 episodes of Raw or 3 episodes of Nitro for 1 week, because I don't know about you, but it gets a bit laborious doing the pay-per-views all the time. And so I thought, they must be into mid-97 Raws by now, because they were up to mid-95 when I last watched them, which was probably 3-4 months ago. And they're still in the middle of 95. So right now, you can watch Raw up until the start of Nitro, and then you can watch Nitro. You know what I mean? It's like, and they were adding 5 episodes a week.
I thought that you could watch the subsequent, or the Raws.
You can't, and they've stopped adding ECW, and and what they do is they throw up just these intermittent episodes like best of, so you can watch like 1 episode from 1999. It's just so, I mean, The only reason I'm subscribed is because it makes it easier than going on one of the torrent websites to see the stuff that I'm watching. Do you know what I mean?
Well, so it's not none to the pay-per-views for you.
No, just download them. You know, it's just. But if you want to have the kind of constant access to just kind of throw something on, it's handy. But you know, it's the network debuted in February, so we're almost 8 months in, and I mean, in terms of the content that has been produced for the network that I've wanted to see, there was the Warrior documentary, the Daniel Bryan documentary, 10 minutes of the 1 hour on the Shield, and that's it. Nothing else that they've produced on that network has been of any substance, and I mean, that is horrendous. And I mean, I know you liked Legends House.
Sure.
But
I liked it because it was like I didn't like it the way they wanted me to like it.
Yes, and
if you know
I mean,
what I mean.
They had another show, didn't they? They have one on the show there.
The countdown shows, some of them are good.
Yeah, it's like when I watch those, I feel like I'm being hypnotized. You know? What I mean?
Yeah, no, it's very.
You know what I mean? It's so
toe the line.
Yeah, and the Miz.
The reason I brought up the network was because it was the SmackDown 15th anniversary. Besides the actual show
That's
itself, which we can
about
talk about, yeah. Besides the show itself, they had Edge and Christian doing a retrospective. Did you see this?
I saw about 5 minutes of it, but then I realized I would have to skip and
The clips.
Yeah, and I just couldn't.
Their banter was very amusing.
I was amused by the start of it, and at some point. Now that I shall soon be employed strictly by the government, I will probably have the time in my hands to go and watch this kind of stuff.
Okay, well, I enjoyed their banter, and I thought that it was nice. They kept a couple of clips of like them clearly just like laughing for real in, which was really nice. It really added to the charm of it. So let's get into the SmackDown 15th. There was a couple of segments that were just fantastic. The wrestling on the show was bad. The main event was interesting enough, but the segments that we should probably talk about was the opening one, which featured Stephanie coming out.
And the Roseballs, I did see this actually.
Yeah, Stephanie came out, and then Teddy and John Laurinaitis came out, and Teddy was like, when Teddy came out, John Layfield did his dance that he does during his entrance these days.
Did he?
Where
he knows that.
Yeah, so when Teddy came out, John started doing his two-step dance, and then ran over to Teddy and shook his hand on the way into the ring.
John Bradshaw Layfield.
You need to see him do it, because usually what happens is, I don't know if
you
know the one he does when he's coming down the ramp at the light.
Amazing, yeah.
He just stood up the announce table and just started doing it. It's like as if he couldn't believe how fortunate he was to see Teddy Long. And Teddy Long also confirmed the opening lyric of his theme that I always wondered,
which is
come on, it's the Mac Militant. He goes, playa. He's talking to Laurinaitis. He goes, playa. I know what I'm doing. I am the Mac Militant. And I was like, I knew it. So that was wonderful.
Do you know what one of my favorite all-time moments of Teddy Long is? Do you know the countdown show they did, the bloopers? Do you know what I'm going to say here?
Where he tries to talk about it being like...
he goes, this man is a 10-time world heavyweight champion and a 2-time... And then he realized he was meant to say WWE champion. And he just like gets this look in his face. Then goes, and a 2-time world heavyweight champion.
There's another one that they showed on the Edge and Christian one from SmackDown where... He's talking about, like, it wasn't quite the longest running episodic thing or something, but it was something very similar. He was like, the longest running ever premiere episode on the fortunate night to... He's just like, he can't do it. I need to quote it properly. But yeah, so they were going back and forth about who can make a bigger tag match. And this involved both men having to list off multiple names over and over and over. It was just brilliant. And then Adam Rose came out, and Stephanie just kind of got upset with him and booked him in a match with Kane, and then started dancing to his music.
Said hit his music. Yeah,
hit his music. And then Teddy started doing the Teddy dance, and then they got Johnny to do the dance as well. The opening segment was so good. And then I guess the other thing coming out of it that everyone's talking about is obviously The Rock and Hunter backstage.
I'm fascinated to hear how you interpreted this segment, because
match at WrestleMania 32.
32.
They kept talking about 100,000 people. Hunter was very clear to say maybe not next year, but in the future. And I just convinced it's 32. It's their fail-safe for Austin not coming back.
So you think,
and Brock not re-signing.
So you don't think that they think possibly will do a match? You think they have it set in stone to do a match at WrestleMania 32
as a fail-safe if they can't get Austin and Brock doesn't re-sign? Yeah.
So is that? So are you saying they are going to have a match, or they might?
I think that they think it is going to happen.
Okay. Because there was a lot of talk on the internet that like it was a lead story in the Observer was that this match was going to happen at WrestleMania 31.
No.
It's just like, because I hadn't seen the segment because I was still away, and I read that, and there's certain things that they kept mentioning, maybe this year, maybe another year, and so that had not been mentioned in the coverage that I listened to, and when I actually saw the segment, I got the feeling that they wanted to do something with The Rock and Triple H for SmackDown, and they also had to pre-tape it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rock and him probably said, okay, what will be funny? And they kind of have this weird rivalry. I think Triple H mentioned it on Jericho's show how he'll see Rock tweeting about working out, and then Triple H will work out and that kind of thing. And but to me, the idea this would build up a match. I have no interest in that match, none. Okay. But B, it was a comedy segment. Of all, how many times have we heard Rock say in interviews that he doesn't want to come back unless he can do bigger numbers than he did with John Cena.
Yeah.
I don't think for a second his business sense is so poor that he thinks, a rematch of Fully Loaded 1998 is going to...
Come on.
No, but do you genuinely think there's any chance this match would be as big as Cena Rock? It wouldn't be. Not even close.
No, I don't. But I think he knows, and we all know, that the way that the money is distributed now is different. So when he's looking at the bottom line, okay, how am I going to get to Cena numbers of kind of, how is this going to be worth my while? One would presume the gate for 100,000 people, if they can really do it, might be tantalizing enough for him to... that might be what he achieves. He did a really good buy rate, so now he might try to fill the stadium.
Okay, but that match wouldn't sell 100,000 tickets.
Well, presumably they're going to do a lot to sell 100,000 tickets. Like, this Mania, as the weeks go on, this Mania more and more feels like... I really think they're focused on 32 as much as 31 at this stage.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, that's just my opinion. Anyway, in terms of the segment itself and entertainment value... It
was funny, yeah.
I thought it was as good a segment as I've seen in years.
There were some really good bits.
It felt so natural, so real.
Rock talking about how close they were, and yeah.
Yeah, Rock calling him a cheap bastard off camera.
Yeah, that last bit was very, very funny.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes. Okay, we're not going to do a full review of this, but did you watch Ben for Glory?
No.
You didn't?
No.
I did, live.
Wow, we've switched places here.
Yeah,
You're going to die a hero, live long enough to see yourself become the villain, I guess. You watched it live. You did not fucking You did not stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning watching this.
There's such a delayed reaction on that
one. You did not.
I did.
I couldn't even accept that would be true. Why?
Because it was Sunday night.
It was a pre-taped show.
You're telling me. It made it pretty tough to do. Okay. I actually didn't look at the spoilers. I just kept going with it. No, I just
you needed to know. You didn't want even Ethan Carter III versus Ryoto Hanma ruined for you, I guess.
I didn't know any matches either on the card except for the X Division match. But anyway, it was a fascinating show.
I'm sure. I feel like it was probably a show that I would have enjoyed entertainment wise.
No,
not even in a vacuum, it wasn't entertaining.
No. Do you know what the best thing about the show was, in my opinion, was when they were doing the ring introductions, because the lads were already in the ring for the main event, the in-ring introductions. Mm-hmm. That Muta and Tajiri struck this little pose and both did the red and green mist at the exact same time, and it looked amazing. That was my highlight, of the night. And the fat fella against Ethan Carter, and how Ethan Carter is like absolutely he's just on the periphery of brilliance, but he still comes off like a geek.
Think so?
Oh yeah, I think he has. I think his idea and his attitude and his personality, if it was honed, still given its own kind of license, but honed by the powers that be at WWE, it's fine. But I think at TNA, they kind of let him do anything, and I think he doesn't know yet what's right and when to do the right things and when too much isn't enough and it is enough and whatnot.
I think he's shown really good instincts. You wouldn't have been watching it, but he does this thing now all the time, but he did it for the first time as an ad lib where the people in New York were chanting, "You can't wrestle."
Sure, yeah, I heard this.
You've heard of this, and in between he's like, "I'm very good," and he just showed such good instincts. To me, you know, he reminds me of. Do you remember when Alex Wright debuted on NXT with the jacket and
Alex Wright,
not Alex Wright, Alex Riley. That's Wonderkind. Alex Riley, the Miz, was he the Miz's protege in NXT too?
Yeah.
Do you remember he had like the football jacket and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do.
He could do that gimmick much better than I can actually picture him in the jacket. I think he's a tremendous television performer. When you look at the fact that they spent thousands and thousands of dollars on vignettes for and gave weeks and weeks of TV time to what's his fucking name? Not Bray Wyatt, the younger one. Bo Dallas and Adam Rose this year.
Sure.
But they cut this guy.
Oh,
You know
I
what I
know.
mean?
They cut him. It was weird. He was just come back from an injury when they cut him as well, or he had just come back. Do you know who he actually EC3 reminds me of from NXT? Used to Alex Riley.
Who's that?
Derek Bateman.
I
Okay.
thought you were gonna say Percy Watson.
No, it was. Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Come on. I loved Percy Watson. Now, listen.
You have fucking Percy Watson bed sheets under your Chris Benoit.
Exactly. I would if I could. But the reason I stayed up to watch Ben for Glory is because
You're a crackhead.
because I am on crack cocaine. The reason is because I thought it might be interesting to say I watched the last ever TNA pay-per-view live.
Ah, okay.
There was a historical significance to it,
Mhm.
and I wasn't in work on Monday. Okay, so
Although to be fair, they probably got a couple of those one night only shows coming up,
oh,
which
they don't.
will technically, I'm sure they do, don't they?
Do they? I don't know.
I'd say they do.
Fine. Okay, let's move on to Monday Night Raw's War. This took place from Atlanta, GA, the Phillips Arena. I remember it well. It's what did I see in the Phillips Arena? I saw the last time Steve Austin got physical in the WWE ring, and I was at that Raw. Do you remember when he had the brawl with The Miz and Alex Riley?
No.
The night after Mania 27.
What?
He was there talking about Big Andy. You remember Big Andy?
I remember Big Andy, yeah.
What was he called again? Quiet Rage?
That was Dave was what I call Quiet Rage. He was Silent Rage. But anyone who doesn't know this story, we have a mate, Diamond David Rogers, and Dave is quite a laid back, chilled fellow, so I created this gimmick for him where he was like,
You didn't create it, you just gave it a name.
he was always simmering away and he could blow at any minute, so I called it the Quiet Rage. And like not 6 months later, this fucking Silent Rage dude debuts on WWE TV. So I actually think the reason that he was stunnered off Raw and went back to NXT and was cut was because there was probably trademark issues with the name owned to me. So that's probably why he disappeared. Before I forget to say, this was in Atlanta. I don't know who it was, but somebody in a backstage promo got confused between saying Hotlanta and Atlanta. I think maybe
Big Show.
He said, what did he say? Hot Atlanta.
That's so fucking happy, bro.
Hot Atlanta.
It was right here in Hot Atlanta. I was like, no, you...
I'm here in cold Dublin. You witty big fuck.
That was... I'm really glad you remember that, because I didn't. Okay, so Ross...
By the way, I only noticed that level of detail when I haven't watched the show in a month.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Dean Ambrose came out and nice reaction, talking about the contract on a pole match, Hell in a Cell. He said that he was going to basically kill Seth. Cena came out and they did their usual kind of back and forth. It was just shite. Then the Authority came out and Hunter said that they were going to team up tonight in a tag match to test their teamwork. Stephanie and Hunter had a bet on whether they could keep it on the same page or not. So we had John Cena and Dean Ambrose against the Usos and current tag team champions Gold and Stardust. This was a baffling match in many ways. I think it was Jimmy Uso was no wait, I'm thinking of last week's Raw. Anyway, there was baffling these guys going at it again. It was actually a fine match.
I thought it was a good match, yeah.
The high spots were everybody doing dives onto each other, including John Cena doing a kind of I'll do my very best not to kill myself jump, and then Dean Ambrose doing I guess what somebody would do with, I think it was like kind of what you do when you're jumping off a stage into a crowd.
Elbow, but yeah, an elbow.
Like at a gig.
Yeah,
it was kind
yeah,
of just like so it's pretty good, and of course the Dust Brothers are the tag team champions, so they take the pinfall, which is the way WWE do it. Afterwards,
he pinned Gold.
Afterwards, Hunter and Steph came back out. Steph was right; they didn't implode, so she won $1, a gentleman's bet. It was referred to as by JBL, and Cena and Ambrose were then told that the match involving the pole and the contract was going to take place tonight and not on the pay-per-view. So this was
it
weird.
Also was going to involve John Cena and Dean Ambrose, not just the pole and the contract.
No, of course. They said that obviously they announced the match for Hell in a Cell, and then they announced it for Raw this week coming, and then they just on Raw announced that it was going to happen that night. They're very confused.
Yeah.
It seems. So next up we had Layla and AJ.
Layla looked fantastic on the show.
I'm telling you.
She's a very attractive woman.
She's a fantastic person.
Yeah.
Versus Paige and Alicia Fox. So this was basically playing off the idea last week that AJ walked out on Emma, but she said to Layla, out of all the divas, I dislike you the least. The interesting thing about this is, do you remember that they were a team for a little while? They didn't reference that. And Layla was skipping around with AJ. Yeah.
Yeah, vaguely.
They didn't. Well, I think they forgot as well. We should never do the show on Thursday. I completely forgot everything about Raw.
It's great though. The quicker we get through Raw, the quicker we get the Spring Stampede.
Okay, so AJ got the win after pinning Fox with a Shining Wizard. After this, she ran down Layla and then bet her up, even though she's a babyface.
Does Eric Clapton have a song called Layla?
Yes, that is
I'd
one
like
of
to
his
sing that to Layla.
one of his bigger ones.
Serenade
You'd have to
her.
sing the acoustic version he did at MTV Unplugged.
I would, yeah. My Papa Bear was a huge Eric Clapton fan, so I was my childhood was spent listening to that Eric Clapton acoustic CD.
Yeah, it was very big. I actually heard the electric version of Layla on the radio today, and I was like,
go, give me a little.
the Layla, the riff from the electric version is biddle diddle doo doo noo 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 biddle diddle diddle noo 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 noo, and then the acoustic one is like doo doo boom boo doo boom.
Yeah, that's
boo-doo,
what I know.
boom.
Yeah.
There you go. And is
Got me on my knees, Layla, or something like that.
yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Kid fell out the window. Okay, so so you've obviously heard the bag of cocaine joke, haven't you?
That was just on call for it. What?
You've heard the cocaine joke with Eric Clapton.
No.
What's the difference between a bag of cocaine and Eric Clapton's child?
I
You
don't
wouldn't
know.
let the bag of cocaine fall out a window. It's a fact. Well, at one stage in his
Oh,
life, it
God.
probably was. Okay, so apologies to everybody who's heard that joke a million times. That's the great thing about
Oh,
UK.
no, I apologize to people who've just offended.
Like who? Oh, well, let's not get into it anyway.
Just between Chris Benoit and babies falling out windows, we need to move on quick, fast.
And I thought this
Let's
was
just
going
think about Layla.
I
please.
thought this was going to be a step up in class from last week's show. So, yeah, this feud continues. Paige and Alicia Fox were very angry that AJ had gotten some sort of psychological or moral victory. I don't know. We got a recap.
I'm going to stop you there.
Go ahead.
I'm going to reach out my hand and I'm going to shake your hand. It's the first week you haven't done the Paige thing.
I know.
Age and Paige.
But I did a joke about it. I said Layla and AJ, Lay
That's true, but you managed to avoid the pitfall, Neil.
I did it last week when you
Did
were
you?
here.
Well, I wasn't here, I was jet setting. What can I say?
So they did a recap of the fake apology for Big Show and built up the idea that they were having a match. Backstage, Randy came into Tardy's office and he said he had a great idea. Basically, that the loser of the pole match would face him at Hell in a Cell in the main
The
event.
other guy.
Yes. They were very careful on commentary all night.
To say the other guy, I thought it was so funny.
It was so weird because, like, it just doesn't even seem like Vince verbiage. So I can't believe it got
does.
through. No, I thought if
The other guy of humanity.
if they'd said like and his opponent, they could say the winner will do this and his opponent will, just the other guy. It was so weird. I don't know.
That's very amusing, I'd say.
So Bray Wyatt, they did the Rowan sketch again. The thing about the Rowan sketch compared to the Luke Harper sketches, at the end it says it's coming, and it's written on what appears to be a slightly pregnant woman's stomach, not a fully bored pregnant woman's stomach. But rumor going around now, I think it's reported in on the Observer that it seemed the idea
They
of
may
this
be kept together.
Yeah. What's happening?
I don't know.
And what does it's coming
I
mean?
have to say that
Them
it's
re-debuting with the same gimmick.
basically, it's funny because the after all the hype and all the people getting behind it, basically he's regressed so badly that he's back to just doing pre-introductory vignettes. Like, this is what he's best at. Once he gets into a wrestling arena, it's all the shits from there.
He's been he's been off TV for about 4 weeks.
I'd say it's good 4 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Was the Jericho match his last appearance?
That's a really good question. That's a lot longer than 4 weeks ago.
I remember he lost to Cena, didn't he? After Cena got beaten by Lesnar.
Yep.
The night after. That was the night after, wasn't
That
it?
could be it, is it?
No, because then he had the match with Jericho the week after, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't know.
The SummerSlam match was the second match with Jericho, wasn't it? And then the cage match
Yeah.
was about 2 weeks after SummerSlam.
Okay, fair
The
enough.
loss to Cena was the night after SummerSlam.
Okay. We had Dolph Ziggler versus Randy Orton, Cesaro on commentary. Ziggler threw his t-shirt at Cesaro and JBL made a very, very amusing face. I remember at the start of this match. This was a really, really good match. I thought they worked well together. It went almost 20 minutes, which was nice. There's quite a few long matches on this show. This would have been one that was slightly more tolerable than the next, however. The finish saw Dolph go for the famouser, Randy catch him in a powerbomb position, and then hoist his arse into the air. Dolph went out vertically, or horizontally even, into an RKO, which was a tribute to all these creative videos about
The
Randy
lines.
RKOing all these different things and people. Are you enjoying these?
I've only seen one or two. First of all, you've nudged on a nerve there with me by referring to it as the famouser. It's the rocker dropper, Neill.
Oh, really?
It is a rocket offer. I won't have the famous or
Well, maybe if
fame
Marty
as it was.
Jannetty didn't paralyze somebody in the ring, I might.
That'll break your neck. Remember that?
Yep,
What was that? Survivor Series 94 maybe?
it was. Yeah.
Yep. Good man. Perfect. This match was really good. And, I mean, I've said before, I could do without seeing a Randy Orton match for the 5 years, but this was a good one.
He is good.
I really enjoyed the finish.
Yeah, the finish was really, really nice. One of the vines, the two best Randy Orton vines I've seen to date, is one where he worked out with himself, which is very good.
Okay.
And like somebody posted it on my Facebook page today, and it was one of those deals where you looked at it and you said, "How has this not happened yet?" And then you said, "How did I not come up with this?"
Okay.
It was the Shockmaster footage with Orton. So it was excellent. After the match, Seth came into the ring and kind of stared down Randy a bit and gave the curb stomp to Ziggler. This is basically teasing an Orton face during an eventual match between him and Seth. Seth then faced Jack Swagger. This was another long match.
Poor DZ, by the way.
How come?
Because he lost to Rusev clean on SmackDown.
Oh,
he
yeah.
lost to Orton clean here, and he lost clean this week on SmackDown as well.
Intercontinental
Spoiler.
champion, Ken.
It's incredible.
That's why you get them belts. So this was another long match. It wasn't as good as the previous. They did a wheelbarrow suplex at one point, which was cool, which played into the finisher. Swagger went for it again, and Seth rolled him up.
I thought nothing played into that finish.
Well, there was a previous spot.
I know, but I just felt watching live nothing played into it.
Well, I don't think the crowd
It was
got it.
impossible to pay attention to this match just for the shits.
Randy came back out and basically, with an eye for an eye, gave the RKO to Swagger and stared at him, and that was it. Even though they seemed like good pals by the end of the show, didn't they? When they came out together.
Maybe that the last segment was so bad I didn't take a lot from it.
Okay, we had Dean and his hubby Renee Young doing an interview backstage.
Are they together?
Yeah, they're not. I was in the Hard Rock in Atlanta, in New Orleans, and we were having an old bite to eat.
Hotland.
I think it was hot New Orleans, and
Nola.
and we were. I can't remember what night it was. It was early on anyway. I think it's definitely before the Friday. I just looked over and there's Renee Young and a creepy looking fella with a baseball cap and a hood on. Sure, it's himself.
And
having a Miller
were they
Lite.
macking like?
They weren't macking, but it's pretty well known they're an item.
Same, really.
She's always smiling at him.
He's done alright for himself then.
He's the titty master.
He's the titty master.
Oh, come on, Ken.
What?
We've talked about this on the football show. Don't tell me you don't know about this.
No.
There's a famous shot of a Shield entrance, and for some inexplicable reason in the background, somebody was holding up a sign saying, "Dean Ambrose is the titty master." And since then, there's just been an incredible amount of memes made of just Dean Ambrose in different situations where he realizes he, of course, is the titty master.
Okay.
I can't believe you didn't know this
But
moniker.
if he was the titty master, he should be with one of the ones with the big fake breasts, which Renee looks proportionate to me.
No, she looks natural.
That's
for
what I
sure.
mean, yeah.
Nobody really knows what it means to be a titty master except him, clearly. So we
The lunatic titty master.
he had. I hate that name.
Lunatic
the Lunatic
Fringe. Doesn't make any sense.
It's fucking shy.
Like, is it to do with his fringe or? I don't
No,
get
he'd
it.
be the balding fringe, wouldn't he?
Yeah. John
Okay.
Moxley.
So we had him cut a promo, and then at the end he kind of sang a little bit of Highway to Hell, and that was fine. Whatever. Big.
Maybe we kind of half broke into it so they wouldn't have to pay royalties. He went, wait to hell. And you just know right in the background, Vince was like,
I'm just surprised that there hasn't been more AC/DC references over the last 30 years in WWE because of Vinnie Mac. Did you read Jericho's? We'll get that in a while.
his third book
Yeah,
or second.
third.
Is the new one?
Yeah.
Not yet. No, you.
No, we'll get that.
I've read
then.
Death of WCW though.
Oh, the revised one.
Yeah, I read that, and I read the UFC Is This Legal book.
Is that the one about the first UFC?
Yeah, excellent,
I'd
excellent.
say
book.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds
You-
amazing.
You know how dedicated I am to our podcast, Neil.
Yeah.
Do you know what I watched while I was in?
Did you
I didn't watch
UFC
Raw.
one
I
again?
didn't watch SmackDown.
You
What?
watched UFC one again, didn't you?
No, I watched Battlegrounds MMA, the entire 4-hour pay-per-view broadcast with Jim Ross and Chael Sonnen on there.
What were they like?
Good. They were pretty good. Yeah.
Let's talk about that during the podcast review because Ross brought it up too.
Okay.
Big Show's backstage.
Ah,
Big Show's backstage at Tom Phillips and talked a lot about Hot Atlanta.
warm at Georgia.
I'm so glad you brought it up, Ken, because it's one of those deals where, like, I was watching by myself, I saw it, I realised when it happened, and then forgot.
I'm here in Hot Atlanta.
So, Big Show and Rusev, I thought they had a good match here.
Yeah, that's all right.
Big Show got the shine early, and then Rusev hit a drop kick that defied gravity.
It was a good drop kick, yeah.
It was just the best drop kick I've ever seen. The finish basically saw Rusev have Show in the accolade, and then Henry came down to cause the DQ to help Show. Show was then angry at Mark Henry, but they kind of patched things up and said, let's go get this sucker. And they went to hunt down Rusev, and he got out of dodge. Wait, did they beat him up? No, sorry. Yeah, he went after Henry.
He beat up Mark Henry,
yeah,
and then Show beat him up.
That's right. Miz
Can I just say
Sheamus.
something?
Go ahead.
Occurred to me when I was watching this, because they have no championship at the moment, basically, because Brock is not around.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine in, we'll say, May, that when, I think it was May, maybe it was April, when Ambrose was losing the US title, okay?
Sure.
He'd lost it in that Battle Royal to Rusev, okay? And you literally didn't change a single thing, but booked Rusev exactly as he has been booked, only with these Yanks coming after the US title, bring it back to the USA from the foreigner, okay?
Yeah.
Could you imagine how much credibility that championship would have, given how he has been booked?
Well, the answer is a lot more than now.
And could it's just my point is, it would be so simple to rehabilitate one or both of those championships, or reunite them, and have something tangible and important to base your crappy television show around, because it's so much of this TV show is shit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And there will come a point when Rusev has lost his first match or two, when, much like Umaga, 7-8 years ago, he'll just lose matches from time to time, and it won't mean anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But those titles, that's what a championship should be in pro wrestling. It should mean something at all times. And unfortunately, they have 2 championships that mean literally less than nothing.
No, obviously, I completely agree. I think everybody's crying out for something like that. It's like Dolph. Nothing has changed for him, except he just happens to have this belt.
Yeah.
For me, I presume that they're going to perhaps do something with Rusev and Sheamus that will lead till about February.
Sheamus isn't American, though.
I know he's not American, but it's still for the belt.
Sheamus, by the way, should just be a heel.
Oh, well, I know. But it's, if they're turning Randy face, I can't see them turning somebody else heel. Anyway.
They have to turn someone else heel if they turn Randy face. They have no heels.
There's no faces. I guess Reigns will be back shortly.
They've got Reigns, Ambrose, Bryan, and Cena. They've 4.
They don't have Bryan.
Well, they will at some point.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
yeah, but I wouldn't. If they're going to have, if they're going to have,
put it this way: if Randy turns face, who all these baby faces going to feud with? Brock will do your odd show.
Well,
just Rollins.
Rollins is the only
Rollins
thing on
has
the
to blow. I mean, for me, Rollins has to be blown off at Hell in a Cell. He has to lose that much.
Yeah, one would think. Miz versus Sheamus again. The finish was basically...
They've ruined the Miz Dow joke, by the way.
There was 3 Mizes. I'll just talk about the finish real quick. So, Miz was under the ring, and then Sandow got grabbed out, and then when Sheamus went to grab another leg, dressed as the Miz, he was duped, and Miz was already back in the ring and got the sneak on him. But why is Sandow being tarnished for you, Ken?
Because... The humour in Sandow was trying to see him in the background, mimicking everything Miz did.
Yes,
now
they're just focusing on too much.
There's points where I'm looking at him and they've got the camera shot on him and we're ignoring what's in the ring. He's just feigning punching the air, and it's not funny. It's just stupid. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Whereas what's in the background, it's like when you see a film and there's something going on in the background, and that's the humour in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. No, I completely
agree.
The
seriousness is the foreground, and the kind of the paradox of what's going on in the background.
We had a woman from a show about women who don't have jobs but are in houses in Atlanta called Nene, I think.
In where, Neill?
In
hot Atlanta.
Hot Atlanta. And
it gets better, baby.
She was talking to the Total Divas cast, and then Cameron came up and
this fucking, pardon my French, but this fucking cunt. This tall fucking bitch. What was her deal?
She was quite tall.
She's just this fucking
star.
Okay, first of all, her haircut, she needs to get to fuck. But this whole segment, Neill, I was so irate. I was like, why is this on my television screen? I have no idea who this woman was. I guarantee you 80% of the people or more who watch the show had no idea who she was.
I disagree.
Really?
I'm sure the show does similar numbers to Raw.
What's it called?
Housewives of Atlanta.
No way, I'm Googling that shit right now.
Okay.
Neil.
Brie
You
Bell-
move along professionally while I try and drive home my
I've
petty
been
point.
trying, I swear. Brie Bella.
Yeah.
Ebola Bella.
Oh, Bella.
Brie Bella, Natalia, and Naomi against Nikki Summeray and Cameron ended with Brie getting a clean win over Nikki. So they're still supposedly
That's
having a
great
match
booking,
at
isn't
the
it?
pay-per-view. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Just really weird.
Nene
to be honest.
Leakes. Right, here she is.
Okay. So Sheamus and the Usos versus Miz and Gold
Neil,
and Stardust was announced for SmackDown.
what age do you think Nene Leakes is?
I'd say she was 41.
She is 47 in a couple of weeks.
Good woman.
She's best known for being on the reality television series The Real Housewives of Atlanta.
The real
In
ones.
2013, she was commissioned star in the spin-off series Dream of Nene, The Wedding, which focused on the preparation for the wedding, okay?
Huge
You may move
star.
along while I dig into the rating pattern here.
Okay. The Wide Family video aired where he talked about cutting himself loose. So this is where people were now thinking that this is nothing to do with them breaking up. We had Stephanie and Hunter and the rest of the authority then separately coming out for the flag on a pole match or contract on a pole match as it may be. This was just interference and hoopla, and it ended with it was about 5 minutes long. It seemed. It ended with Dean Ambrose standing on the ring post or on the top rope when Cena had been distracted. Cena turned around and Dean Ambrose waved at him and took the contract. Then John Cena, who had been having a blood feud with Dean Ambrose over getting the opportunity to have a blood feud with Seth Rollins, applauded the man and smiled at him because it's John Cena. Just gave him a round of applause.
No need to sell anything.
Yeah, there you go. And then they announced for next week's Raw, it was going to be a handicap match. It was going to be Cena and Ambrose and Rollins against Kane and Orton. I can't take them anymore.
No.
I just can't do it. And that was Raw.
You said Cena, Ambrose, and Rollins, by the way. Cena and Ambrose against Rollins.
Cena
Kane,
Ambrose
Orton.
was wrong. Kane, Orton. You know, this wasn't as bad as the last 3 weeks, but that's faint praise.
Yeah, I actually want to watch the show after the Orton match and before the shitty Swagger Rollins match.
Yeah.
I actually thought to myself, well, you know, this isn't bad. And a lot, I knew in my head, a lot of that is because I haven't been watching. You know what I mean? So, for example, the opener with the tag champs getting pinned didn't grate on me as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to say, yeah, it was a pretty good match. But just again, by the 90-minute mark, when you realise you still have, you're 90 minutes in, you still have 90 minutes plus a 10-minute overrun left, you're just like, dear God.
Okay, let's get to some podcasts here. Cole Cabana had Shane Douglas on 2 weeks ago. That's actually something I'd be interested in listening to. See how many times he says Oblivia Cree or claims that 20,000 people were chanting ECW when he took the mask off a couple of years ago in the arena. Do you remember that?
No.
Ken, do you remember Raw a couple of years ago was in Philadelphia and he was starting a promotion and like in the background you saw like a couple of people looking around and the next thing a video goes up of him on a camera phone going, I just went into WWE's house and proclaimed it ECW territory once again. I took my mask off and 20,000 people started chanting ECW.
Did anyone say that?
No, it's so. It was just him running, going ECW, ECW in like 2011 or something. So I'd be interested in that. He also had Colt Cabana, also had Dave Prazak on. But at the start of the show, we had
Ring of Honor.
We had he is Shimmer Booker or something, isn't he?
Right. Okay.
But they had
I shudder.
They had CM Punk's first appearance on The Art of Wrestling since his departure. And he just basically talked about how he was really pissed off because he was trying to buy a new iPhone. And there was some guy sneaking pictures of CM Punk buying a new iPhone. And he called him a shit and a bastard. And that was pretty much it.
I hate CM Punk.
It actually came off really badly, I thought.
He's just an arsehole, like.
He is a genuine arsehole.
There used to be a, because of the passion he had for pro wrestling and how good he was as a performer and how he was underappreciated, there was a charm to him.
Sure.
But I mean, really, genuinely, if you see him on Twitter as well, he comes across as just this fucking arsehole.
Yeah. He hasn't been on Twitter in a while, in fact.
Has he not?
No.
The coach.
Jim Ross had WWE's kind of like artist guy who's doing a lot of portraits and stuff for the guys. I worked closely with the Ultimate Warrior as well, designing ring jackets before his passing, and the historian who did the WWE Encyclopedia and the 30 Years of WrestleMania books. This is very fascinating stuff.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, it was good. 2 guests, good stuff. They were both on separately. The one thing that was kind of hard to take was that both their stories involved Jim Ross kind of being the one to put them in contact with WWE. So a lot of it was just like, I knew the talent was there, and I was more than happy to accommodate your relations with WWE beginning. And it's just kind of like, Jim, this really necessary?
Listen
Like,
here,
this-
right? I watched we were texting about this. No Way Out 2003 on Monday or Tuesday night.
I wish that you'd picked that as a show we reviewed.
It's not as good as you might hope.
Fascinating show, though.
The opener was good, but I watched specifically because do you remember it was Monday's Observer show? Dave and Brian were discussing the Rock Hogan stuff, and then Dave mentioned that Rock outworked Hogan at the rematch. You remember this?
Yep.
As in, Rock had kind of been outshone by Hogan in the WrestleMania match, and that the reverse had happened in the rematch.
Yeah.
So I went back to watch it, and I thought, well, I may as well watch the whole show, First of all, just on that point, that was completely untrue. It's just Rock was the heel in this match, you know what I mean? So, and there was
And
just
this was
not nearly as much
2003
heat.
heel Rock. He had 3 months of excellence here.
You what?
This was 2003
Yeah, it was
heel
good,
Rock.
but my
He
point was,
great.
there was no kind of like, he didn't outshine Hogan, it was just that he was the heel, do you know
He
what I
did
mean?
clarify on today's show.
Yeah,
Dave Meltzer
I was
said
like,
that.
Dave, you fucking arsehole, wasting my time. But anyway, I did watch the entire show, and this was also the show that featured the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes.
After he walked out in the company, and I remember this on my head as being just this insane bop.
It was,
So
wasn't
I
it?
was really looking forward to it. But if you recall, and I didn't because I was living abroad at the time, so I didn't see the angle. They had an angle where Ross had his arm broken by Bischoff,
Coach?
Bischoff and Morley, Chief Morley.
Oh, yeah.
On Raw the week beforehand. So Ross wasn't on the show, and no, it wasn't his arm broken. It was they broke a cinder block over his face when Dean Ambrose was still a teenager. But anyway, so Ross isn't at the show, and it's Coach and Lawler on commentary, and then Ross shows up before the Austin Bischoff match. And I was watching it, and I don't know if you remember this. Ross is going crazy, and they had the camera on him. This is when they had the announcers in the Nitro spot.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Come on, Steve!" Blah, 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 And I was just thinking to myself, wasn't it so great, right? When you just loved Jim Ross, like when he's just like your kindly old granddad, and now we know he's just this bitter, curmudgeonly old bastard who like sleazes all over Lita, like, you know what I mean? And just interrupt you in conversation.
I'm not lying. I don't know. I didn't have a trigger like that, but this week I definitely sat and thought about how my
Like, suddenly
view
you're like-
on Jim Ross is not the same as it used to be. And when I thought about what it used to be, I used to love him. I used to enjoy the fact that there's a point in my life where he was the stranger's voice I'd heard more than anybody else's. And I thought
And
that was really cool.
I just keep thinking that like Vince went easy on him for all those years. Like I would have been doing much worse shit. You know what I mean? You can picture the meetings backstage, Vince and him talking about something. They kind of come to a decision. And Vince goes to move on, and just hear, and he's talking. You just do your best Vince McMahon voice there, okay?
I can't do one
Just do it. God damn it, man.
well, Jim.
That's my opinion. In my opinion, that piece to you. And Ross is just fucking stammering on in the background, like.
It's an Oklahoma company. What can I say? I wish they were a sponsor, but he was also talking about
There's
his,
no rules to break. No.
He was talking about his commentary with Chael and saying that people are very interested in them as a duo moving forward. What were they like?
They were good. I mean, it was. It felt a little bit forced when they did the introductions. You could see Chael wanted to get his stuff in. Chael tried to do that thing that when you watch, like, say, what's the show called? Saturday Night's Main Event from 2006 when they were just doing it again.
Yeah.
And Michael Cole would be like, "Here's the great Khali. He's a big fella, but he likes to have fun." And he'd be introducing all the characters for the first time.
Sure.
Chael was he wasn't introducing the characters the first time, but he was every kind of hold, someone would get a takedown and he'd be like, "Now what he's going to try and do here, JR, is he's going to try and get his legs over top of this guy's chest here, and that's going to be called the mount position." And as Ariel Helwani very astutely pointed out on Chael's own podcast, which God forbid we need another podcast, but Chael was very much speaking to the novice MMA fan, and it did feel a bit much at times because there's no novices ordering Battlegrounds MMA.
That's exactly what I said in our MMA show.
Well, there you go. And but I mean, when Ross was good. The only thing the show was missing was, and there was in the tournament there was obviously 7 matches and there were 5 finishes in the first 5 matches, but the shame was that the other semi-final and the final were the worst, and the final particularly were just dreadful. So there was no real chance for a kind of big dramatic call from Jim Ross, especially because the arena was empty. I mean, empty. Like behind Ross and Sonnen were just rows of empty seats. It was embarrassing, like really, really bad. And it didn't even get much fuller at any point. Like I would have estimated maybe 1,000 people there in this 20,000 seat building. Like, so but they were fine, but they could do with a few shows, a bit of seasoning.
Okay. Jericho had who did he have? He had John Morrison on. I thought John Morrison was awful.
Yeah, terrible.
Cool. He had the guy from the Nerdist podcast on. No, nothing good in that. He had D from Run DMC on. I didn't listen to that. His book obviously is out at the moment, and it's been getting a lot of great reviews. Supposedly the best thing about his book is there's loads of really good Vince stories.
Loads of what?
Loads of really good Vince stories.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that should be interesting.
I'm actually in the middle of reading. I bought Chokehold.
Okay.
Which is a pro wrestling book, and also the J.J. Dillon book, which is...
That's supposed to be very good.
Yeah, I'm really early in it. I always find when you're reading about wrestling from like the 60s and the 70s, I don't want to say I don't find it interesting, but you know when you're reading it and you can't put faces to any of the names.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's kind of so I'm looking forward to getting to the 80s and Crockett and because he worked very closely with Vince, didn't he? I think it was
he was head of talent relations in
because he was the one who Mick Foley would always call and stuff. But you know what I mean. So I'm looking forward to getting to that more current stuff. But,
I'd say
he comes across really, really well in the book. I'd say, a
man of class.
We've discussed Brett and his references to his infidelity in the book.
Sure.
And like his complete bafflement that his wife was so disenchanted with him, which is just so wonderful to me. But this is JJ is the opposite, where I mean he's very honest with himself. He discusses his infidelity with his first wife, and he acknowledges the pitfalls being in the road and that it's an easy trap to fall into, but he's classy enough to just readily admit, I did wrong, kind of thing, which is refreshing,
Steve Austin's podcast.
Yes.
He had some questions on his Tuesday show. It wasn't much of anything you haven't heard before. Was there anything of note on that show? I know he spoke about Hogan with a listener and stuff like that, but there was nothing major. He just unequivocally denied the rumors about him coming back and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, he did. It was kind of covering old ground, and it's one of those. I think he may have told a good story too. I just can't remember because I
listened to it last night. I can't fucking remember anything good about it. But what I do remember is today's show.
Okay, so my wife and baby were out when I got home from work, and I just put it on the way home, and I realized, okay, so this is what the show is. So I sat down, I turned the network on.
Did you do it? This is the whole thing.
Listen. I was 3 minutes in, and as in I'm listening, I'm watching the entrances. And then my wife and baby came home like, and I'm going out. But I desperately wanted to watch it, so I'll probably watch it when we go home. So yeah, what he did was he watched WrestleMania 17 with The Rock. No, he didn't watch it with The Rock, rather. He watched his match with The Rock at WrestleMania 17 and gave like play-by-play laying out the match. Have you listened to the whole podcast?
See, this is the thing, I listened to it and I was so frustrated because while listening to it, I was like, about 2 minutes in, I was just like, oh Jesus, why am I not watching along?
Okay, so I should do it.
He should have done the trilogy with The Rock, to be honest. He should have done it in order as well.
Oh, that 15 match is garbage.
Garbage is very harsh.
Yeah, it is very harsh, yeah.
Very harsh.
But then, listen, Steve on his Tuesday show that we just said we forgot everything about said that his match with Shawn was the drizzling shits, which I thought was...
He's always been very hard on that match. I think it's more so that he knows if Shawn wasn't the way he was...
Yeah.
It could have been so much better because him and Shawn had so many great house show matches. King of the Ring 97 match.
97 match was fantastic.
Awesome. So I think it's more...
That Special Olympian!
yeah, exactly. I think
we need to watch that show just so we can discuss the Special Olympian.
Let's do it. It's my choice, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, speaking of the...
Did you boys do a classic review last week?
We did. We reviewed WrestleMania 2000.
WrestleMania 16. Oh, the one with no singles matches.
Yeah.
Happy days.
So, so I would highly recommend the Austin show. Ken, you can give us a review of it next week.
I will, yeah.
And for those of you who haven't done it yet, he has the audio for the commentary playing when he's not doing his own commentary. So it's very easy to keep up. You can hear Heyman and Jay, where you can hear the crowd noise, you can hear the ring, you can hear the entrances. He starts the review of it during the very last few words of the My Way video package. So to sync it up, you'll be able to tell me. I presume it wasn't too hard.
No, and you know what's even better? I've got because I've got my baby goes to bed fairly early in the evening sometimes.
Yeah.
I have a pair of wireless CAN headphones
cool.
like the ones you're wearing right now.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have one earphone listen to the podcast and one CAN on the other ear to get kind of the
Oh
real.
wow!
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm looking
Well,
forward to it.
so just word to the wise: if you are going to listen to the show, just go out of your way, whether even if it's on fucking Daily Motion, just watch along with it, because I enjoyed it and I wasn't even watching the match along with it. The stuff you say, see, I don't even want to say because you haven't seen it yet.
Don't.
Okay, there's some really good stuff there. Okay, you have some notes. This was the thing I missed most, beside just your presence last week, was your classic notes.
Oh,
your star
classic
ratings
show.
from Dave Meltzer, your insight into what was happening in the
Before we
business at the
move
time.
along with the with Spring Stampede, can we just discuss the Lance Storm show from today?
What Ken is referring to is the Lance Storm does a bi-weekly appearance on Wrestling Observer with Brian Alvarez.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to Lance this week because when I saw the WrestleMania 17 Austin show was up, I was like, I better do this.
Listen, Lance is just. We've discussed Lance's jumping at the shark. Like,
Oh, good.
he's just the most. He's just the most irritating man. Like, he's just so easily irritated.
I was hanging out with Dan, who from the ITK Sock Show did a show last week, up in a local pub here on Tuesday night, watching the Ireland match. And
What a moment that was.
He had I know he had a friend there, who had worked as a referee in some things. His friend had done a podcast with Blake Norton a few years ago. Do you remember Blake from the
yes, I do.
Bagpipe Report?
Blake Norton was actually. You know my friend Lenny.
Yes, I do.
Lenny knew Blake quite well.
Yeah, and this guy's a really, really nice guy. But I got talking to him properly about wrestling and stuff, and told him about our show. And obviously we were talking about podcasts, so we got onto the Observer. And besides yourself and my wife, he's the only person who I know who subscribes.
Yeah.
So I was just thrilled with this and set off in my big, let's analyze every show, what's your favorite. He doesn't think Lance Storm is in any way redundant.
Really?
I enjoyed his
Yes.
company. I enjoyed I love talking to new people about wrestling,
Yeah.
but I just was so baffled.
Okay, so this week's show, they're discussing the network, and Lance is discussing how he never watched it other than he watches nothing current on it, and Brian is trying to convince him to watch the pay-per-views. At least watch the monthly pay-per-views, and Lance is like, basically they keep coming back to the same point that his wife is more and more hates watching Raw and is hating it more and more by the week, and says it's this garbage.
Mhm.
And Lance was going to skip this week's show because they had like in-laws over, but he realized if he skips it this week, his wife might put the hammer down next week, because she'll be like, oh, you missed 1 week, we can miss another, and then eventually he'll just be out of the habit of it. And they were discussing how that's probably how a lot of people stop watching Raw. And I can tell you, when I have gone through my periods of that's kind of it. I just go, I'm skipping this week. And once you miss a few episodes, it's very easy to miss it.
Sounds like me in Carnation Street 4 years ago, and that's no lie.
But first of all, he made his. I don't think he intended this. He made his wife sound like such a bitch. Like, he's just like, just basically kept coming back to the fact that she'd like basically put the hammer down and say, you're not doing this, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
But he just was being so. Just so Lance, so everything, he has to make a point about everything. He had his boycott of the UFC for a year, and he just, I mean, how negative I can be on the current WWE product.
Yes.
But I hope that when we do our classic reviews or podcast reviews, you can see that there's a love of wrestling there. You know what I mean?
Obviously.
With Lance, it's just like, I just feel like everything, he's just trying to pick a fucking hole in it. It's so, I mean, I listen to the show because I'm paying for the shows, and it's Lance. He sometimes, when he has a point, sometimes he can be very incisive.
Of course, yeah.
But it's becoming more and more rare. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about a guy who's widely renowned as a pleasure to be in the ring with. Currently, his wrestling school is up there in terms of the highest rated when people are talking about places to go to train. But for all his insight and expertise, you can't help getting older, and he doesn't have a great personality anyway. So
No.
I just think, like, if he's a sourpuss, he's only going to get worse as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so for
He's very sour.
just to give you a Reader's Digest of that, don't listen to the Lance Storm show if you have
Yeah.
access to it. Do watch WrestleMania 17 and listen to Steve Austin's commentary.
Yeah.
So Slamboree 1994 took place Philadelphia Civic Center in Pennsylvania. The tagline of this, Ken, is one ring, one moment, one mega event. Now, I know they did Brawl Brawl in
One
2 cages
mega
sometimes,
event.
and I know that they did World War III from 96 onwards, which is 2 years after this. But is one ring really a big selling point of this show?
Well, it's only 6 months on from Fall Brawl,
That's
so
it, yeah.
that too.
All right, go for it there.
So we had good opening video package. I will defer to you from time to time because, as we discussed before, we went on the air. My MacBook where I had my notes has died a death. So
I'm looking at Slamboree.
Are you? Where did you say the show was from?
It says from Philadelphia, which it wasn't.
No, it was not from, and that's how much attention I paid to you.
How have I gotten to
WCW Spring
Slamboree?
Stampede 1994 was from the Rosemont Horizon, the favorite building of one Stone Cold Steve Austin, in Illinois, USA, on the 17th of April in 1994.
Okay, so the tagline is an event so wild, no ordinary ring could hold it.
No ordinary ring could hold it.
So surely two would help. And the other one was Locked Horns. This is incredible. Locked Horns, bullish temper. Let's get this. Never mind.
Go on.
I fucking did a Teddy Long on it. Locked, play it, horn, Spring Stampede, tag team match. It's Locked Horns, bullish tempers. Let the stampede begin.
Okay.
I'm gonna edit that out.
Okay, please do. Okay, so we did a good kind of opening video package recapping the top matches. I noticed here the video quality is substantially better than it had been, which I say that because obviously I was watching all the shows. I have been watching all the shows from this time period, and this looked a bit closer to 1994 WWF because I remember that so clearly because that's kind of I first got into wrestling in 92 and then Sky disappeared, so 94 is my first kind of clear period of memories of watching wrestling. This looked like 1994 wrestling to me. Even 92 and 93, the quality was just a little bit worse than this. So, Aaron Neville does the national anthem. Who
Adrian's
is this
brother.
who is this black country music singer? The outfit he was wearing was probably straight from your wardrobe. Skin tight leopard print vest with no sleeves, a black hat, earrings and necklaces everywhere, and a giant birthmark over his right eye.
Well, besides the birthmark, you're pretty close.
Yeah, he sings very softly. No Lillian Garcia here. I thought he was awful, but the crowd goes nuts anyway. Tony and Bobby do our open. We're in the Rosemont Horizon, Steve's favorite place to wrestle. Johnny B. Bad comes out with his glitter gun. I couldn't help but find something kind of odd about the fact that in 1994, here he is. Johnny B. Bad is kind of he's kind of androgynous. He's not as much as he was in the early 90s.
Yeah, they'd taken away a lot of his facial makeup.
But he he has this glitter gun, like kind of like China would have in later years, and he shoots glitter all over the crowd. And like, there's just a shot of the crowd, and there's just men leaping in the air, so delighted with getting covered in Johnny B. Bad's glitter. You know,
Yeah.
something kind of odd about that.
And this is the rough and tough South. Well, it's actually not in Chicago, but still, this was.
Where is Chicago geographically? I've been in Chicago. I don't know where it is.
It's kind of central north.
Central north.
Yeah.
Okay. Now where was I? Okay, so
It's like more to the east and central.
Next is
anyway.
DDP coming out with Kimberly, who I didn't realize was there at this point.
Oh yeah, and this is super early DDP in the ring kind of stuff.
Yes, it is. I first of all, I'd forgotten just how pretty Kimberly was.
It's insane.
She was a gorgeous woman,
Very naturally.
Which I feel like, she kind of, I don't say ruined herself, but I have this picture of her in the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yes.
And
She was a good bit older at that stage, though,
She wasn't even, because I remember Googling what age she was. I think she was like late 30s at that stage.
Okay.
But she just kind of made it, she was designed to be unflattering in that role, you know what I mean?
You didn't see Total Divas this week, did you?
No, why?
Okay, there's just a tie-in I could have done there, but never mind, go ahead.
Okay. Paige is wearing a full-length black singlet, black tights, black kind of vest, with this weird kind of, I think it was a leopard print belt, was it?
Yep. Zebra print or something.
And the match was fine. I don't have a huge amount to say about it. It
Short
was,
enough.
Yeah, it was about 8-9 minutes. Mara wins
it was
with
fucking 5 minutes.
What?
It was 5 minutes.
Was it? I gotta find this out. Mara wins with a sunset flip off the top rope. I thought this was a perfectly acceptable opener, but no better than that. You?
One of those ones, and obviously everything's retrospective.
By the way, Meltzer went 1.25 stars. I thought it was 2 stars, but maybe I just wasn't paying that much attention.
Clearly, it was 6 minutes long, 5:55.
Was it? Oh, you got it in front of you, haven't you?
Yeah.
Cheater.
Like, the thing about, I felt even shorter than that to me, but the thing about, obviously, everything is retrospective, and I don't think you looked at the Austin Muda match and said the biggest drawing star in one calendar year is this guy right here. But I certainly thought, looking at DDP here in early 94, it's probably because he looked older, even though in ring years he was green. I don't think you could have looked at him losing to Johnny B. Bad in 5 minutes and opener pay-per-view and realised how big things would have got from him in the space of 2 years.
Yeah, because and it was probably more. It was more 97 that really kind of hit. But people who weren't watching every week, I don't think realize how big DDP was for a period.
They don't, Ken.
You know, he really was.
Just because I'm revisiting it now, I can. It's
I hear people all the time give this guff about how because he was Bischoff's mate, that's how he got where he went.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, I mean, maybe that's why he got the push.
We've talked about this before. Like, there is a point in 97, and you agreed with me when we brought it up, where one show is Austin and the other show is DDP in terms of hotness. Because people forget. Like, everyone's like, oh, you know, WCW got it right until the Sting Hogan match, but it was a year and a half build-up. It's like, yeah, Sting was on TV once in a blue moon most of that time.
Who said this?
A lot of people, the general consensus is, the one great thing WCW did that they fucked up was a year and a half long build.
Man, I mean, you know that Nitro where Page puts on the shirt and then he's I think Hall and Nash are raising his arm and he pulls Hall in, hits him with the diamond cutter.
Yeah, that's it.
It's just fantastic.
That's one in the Superdome or the Silverdome.
Silverdome, yeah. Okay. By the way, I'm using this program that I've got my notes on that I took from the computer before I sent it in to get fixed, and it's. Every time the phone freezes, the phone what's the word, locks, it goes back to the start and I have to find where I am, so that's really helpful.
Do you want to put your mic in a holder?
You what? I should probably use that.
Yeah, do you want to? Do you have it handy?
Gene says that it's been we see Gene Okerlund and Jesse Ventura, and Gene says, it's been a big week for you, Jess. And Jess says he feels like $1 million with a big smirk on his face. You know why that was?
This is the royalties,
yes.
Isn't it?
He settled his lawsuit. This pay-per-view was a weekend, and it was 3 or 4 days after he'd settled his lawsuit with the WWF. So his lawsuit was basically he won $801,000 because when negotiating his contract with the World Wrestling Federation in the 80s, he was told that nobody received any royalties for videos the WWF sold except those sold specifically on a performer's name. So, for example, a Best of Hulk Hogan, Hulk would get money. But, like, say, at WrestleMania, no one did. But he, of course, later found out that was untrue. So, he sued, and that was a landmark case because nobody ever went to court with them. You know, Jeremy McDevitt, even to this day, Jeremy McDevitt just bullies people. You know, they stretch things out so long that eventually people are forced to settle
out. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like, Ventura was a complete and utter maverick. He had already tried to pitch the idea to the wrestlers while he was in the company of doing a union, and before he'd had this issue with them and eventually the falling out. So Ventura was very much kind of like the way he is now.
Voice.
Yeah, he's his own guy, and yeah, it's fascinating.
And of course, they would eventually. It's amazing that in 1999, a union would not ever only be formed, but actually featured on television. Union.
Very good. You know,
Jim Johnston, he's a lot to be proud of. But that union entrance theme.
You know, sometimes he doesn't have much time. I don't think
he often doesn't have much time, but he still comes up with. You know, there's oftentimes you'll see a guy debut and his music's not great, but a week or two later it's been improved.
Yeah.
That union theme never got any better.
They lasted for 4 weeks, so I don't think that it was ever put in priority. Jesse Ventura has like a rat's tail that is the thickness and size of an actual ponytail.
Of an actual rat, they're going to say.
It looks like a mongoose. It's just hanging off the back of his head, and he's as bald as a coot otherwise. How do you think Jesse felt with Bobby Heenan replacing him as a colour?
Neill, my next note was from The Observer that week. Ventura was very unhappy at the show because he showed up thinking he was going to do play-by-play. And I, of course, have been watching the WWE shows from the time period, and there were a couple of shows where they'd split the duties, which was really awkward, I have to say. One would show up, one would disappear, and so Jesse showed up to the show, you know, in great form after winning his $800,000, and he wasn't doing commentary, and he was very disappointed about it. So there you go.
Do you have any other notes on Heenan and Shivani's interplay during the show?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't think so. Do you want to?
Yeah, it's just I thought they were brilliant. I thought they were really, really good. This was when Bobby was still good, so it wasn't a case of you know, they just fell out or anything by the Nitro days or the late 90s when they did pay-per-views with Tenay. They were just really, really, really good together. Their interplay was great. So I went back and I looked at some of their first stuff together. And it was actually in WWE that they...
Of course, yeah.
And I always thought that this would have been the first time they worked together, but that's obviously not the case.
No.
And it was absolutely fascinating. And there's a great clip from Primetime Wrestling of Heenan just complaining for 3 minutes straight to Monsoon about Schiavone, and he keeps calling him Schiavoner. He goes Tony Schiavoner. It's just fun. Anyway, Heenan was really good on this show.
Yeah, he was. He still cared. Okay, now let's see if we can find where I was in my notes. Okay, so next up was Lord Steven Regal against Brian Pillman.
Mm-hmm.
They went to a 15-minute time limit draw. Notable was that Regal had been going to 15-minute draws because that was the thing with the TV title. You could do that. That was the time limit for them. However, the original finish when this match was booked was for Regal to go over clean because Pillman was supposed to be leaving. So
this
they booked
was
this
a long
match.
time before Pillman left.
Yes, so they booked this match with the idea that he was going to beat Pillman because they felt he needed a win after having he'd drawn at the pay-per-view and Clash prior.
Okay.
They felt like, okay, it's too predictable doing all these draws. He's got to win one. Pillman's on his way out, so we'll have him beat Pillman. But of course, Brian Pillman renegotiated his deal and re-signed just before the show, which is notable because that was April '94, which is why in April '96 he was able to sign with the World Wrestling Federation. Yeah. So that kind of ruined this. I've watched several Regal matches from the time period recently, and particularly one with Dustin Rhodes had kind of felt hot in the last minute when you're coming toward that draw, but I just felt they never really got out of second gear. I thought this match was okay.
Yeah,
more than that. And incidentally, I didn't.
Judging by the two that were
Dave
in it,
actually went 2 3/4 stars with this. I went a star and a half.
I didn't think it was any great shakes. One highlight was Bobby Heenan. Tony Schiavone kept the way they give the time cues. Michael Capetta will give the time cues. So Schiavone was reiterating what Michael Capetta was saying, but Heenan kept asking Sir William, as in Bill Dundee, what the actual time remaining was to just argue with them. Schiavone, so that was very good.
Okay, so next up we had, as he tries to kill time,
it was the Nasty Boys.
Yes, and I have so much to say about this and how it was received at the time. So it's Cactus Jack
and Max Payne.
Max Payne.
Chicago street fight. Let me ask you this first off. I have a couple of questions. The Nasties were the heels, no?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Secondly, this was before Jack was loaned to ECW, right?
Ooh, yes, it should have been, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Okay. So it was Cactus Jack and Max Payne against the Nasty Boys. It's a wild brawl. They kind of break off into packs of two. So it's like, I think it's
mostly Knobs and Jack.
Knobs and Jack and
Sags
Payne
and
Sags. Sags and Payne go over to this concession stand, which I remember I'd seen this match in on a tape that I'd gotten through nefarious means, as you would say, Neill.
Thank you.
In the late 90s, and I remember this. Even then, when I was 14, 15, I could tell how fake this concession stand was. First of all, there was guardrails surrounding it so that no fan could possibly come anywhere near this concession stand. On this concession stand were 2 WCW t-shirts and 1 Nasty Boy t-shirt pinned to the kind of advertising board behind the table. And there was no merchandise on or under the table. No one selling anything, and all the fans blocked away from it. So
this is something that they would redo 2 years later at Uncensored in a match between Harlem Heat
and Sting
and the Nasties. And they had like a full row of these kind of concession stands. Okay. And it was just sherry being pushed into them and tomato, ketchup and mustard everywhere. Might have been where Dean got the idea actually last week on Raw. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so Payne slams Knobs through a table, then he rips the Nasty shirt down off the kind of advertising hoarding, and Tony says, Tony in his, taking this match really seriously in commentary says, "I'm not sure that's even his size shirt." It's just a crazy brawl. The crowd is really, really into it.
Yes, they are.
Knobs wallops Mick with a shovel in the head on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Mick then sets up a table on the stage and tries to pile drive Sags through it, but it just collapses and they fall off, which is really awkward.
Was this meant to be the finish?
No.
Okay.
Sags then throws Mick off the stage and kills him. This bump was just disgusting.
For those of you, I measured it via Doug Dillinger.
Yeah.
So it was up to Doug Dillinger.
I hate Doug Dillinger.
It was... It was up to Doug Dillinger's shoulder, so we're talking probably about 5'7", 5'8", maybe, the stage off the ground. And Foley, like, the bump is just, it's not a throw, it's a push.
Yeah, he flies,
but Mick
smacks.
But rather than, like, fall straight, Mick actually does what one would do, like, taking a bump in the ring. Like, he leaves his feet to brace with his arms and falls in that manner.
Yeah, it's so painful
fucking, and the fact is, the camera is more focused on pain.
Yeah, so you only see it in the background, they never show a replay.
No.
And then that's almost the finish because...
the finish is the shovel to the head from Sags, which is really well done because the camera's right on top of these guys and he hits just the ground beside Foley, but they're right beside the audience as well. So he hits it to the side, the blind side of the audience, but it's dead on the camera. It actually looks okay.
You don't think he got Mick in the face at all?
Oh, I'm not saying that he didn't touch Mick, but I'm saying that I think Mick's back would have been more hurt than his head when the match was finished, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, I'm sure it was his head and neck. But I thought this was... I mean, it was only like 9-10 minutes long. It was really intense.
It didn't need to be longer.
No, well, maybe. But I enjoyed the match. I went 3 3/4.
Whoa.
What did you go?
About 3.5.
Okay, you know, Big Dave Meltzer went.
Okay.
I'm starting to think that Mick must have been a source. Big Dave Meltzer said this is a 4.5-star match. Isn't that just crazy?
It is crazy.
I can't watch this match and in any way see how you give this 4.5 stars.
You know, and I was going to wait till we got to the Bunkhouse book match later, but if you just compare...
That was a great match.
Yes, Jesus. But if you compare the intensity and the physicality of these matches compared to what was happening in WWE at the time, it's kind of incredible that WWE or WCW are putting this kind of stuff, multiple matches like this on one show.
Absolutely.
This was... It was like, this is really early 94, so even ECW hadn't gone full bore.
No.
But this match was so ahead of its time in terms of a national stage.
Yeah. It was a good match. I enjoyed it. But yeah, like I said, I think Dave talks in the Observer, I read his review, and he just talks about how intense it was. And, it almost feels to me like Mick's bump and the shovel shot to the head probably has earned this match maybe 1.5 stars. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
That's the only way I can see how you give it that rating, because...
Well, at the time, yes.
Yeah, but for me, it's like, I don't know, because it's hard to... I feel like if someone did this stuff now, they'd be so heavily criticized. Do you know what I mean?
Not only that, but I think, because of what we've seen, it wouldn't have the impact. But
I fully agree with you there. Same way as what we discussed with Halloween Havoc in 1983.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a good match, so I enjoyed that one. So then next up we had...
Steve Austin with Rob Parker, Colonel Rob Parker. This is his first of a couple appearances on the show against the Great Muta. And this is for the US title, which Steve had won at the Starrcade the December beforehand. I was very, very, very interested in what this was going to be like.
What did you think of this match?
I thought it was good.
Good, okay.
I didn't think it was as good as it could have been. It's
Talk
weird,
us through
man.
the finish.
Like, I like Steve Austin so much. I love Steve Austin. But I've yet to really see a non-Hollywood Blondes Steve Austin WCW match that has done much for me, that I go back and watch again.
We discussed this because you and I have now discussed several of these shows in this kind of 18-month period.
Yes.
I see him, and I felt like in 1992, when he was part of Dangerous Alliance, I thought he had more than he had in 93 and 94. I just... Watching this, I can understand how somebody at the top of the company, the decision makers, thought, I mean, and I know the reason that Austin was released, I think Bischoff mentioned it on his podcast, because he rang Steve at his house and spoke to Steve's wife and asked for Steve, and Steve basically told him to fuck off, because they wanted him to come to TV and do a job for somebody, and Steve basically...
You're still injured.
I think told his wife to say he was out, but did it so loudly that it was obvious he was in the room.
Yeah.
And then because of that, Bischoff, decided to fire him. But they wouldn't have done that if they felt he was a star in the making. My point is, I didn't watch this and think, man, this guy was bound for glory here, you know what I mean? Pardon the pun.
Yeah, no, I completely get what you mean.
He was a solid,
he did
the term he uses all the time, though, Neill.
Good technician.
Is mechanic. Yeah.
Mechanic.
I could see that. He was a good mechanic, but he didn't show anything. And it wasn't until he shaved his head, and I think until he got that great Jim Johnston music, that's when he first started showing me a lot, Well,
and I think he showed a lot in ECW with promo-wise.
Yeah, I'll give you that, but that's...
Did he get much promo time on the WCW Pro or Saturday Night shows.
No, because they always see, people sort of talk about the Ringmaster as this bad gimmick and then putting him with Ted, but in WCW he was put with Lady Blossom, then Paul Heyman, then Colonel Parker, and within the Blondes, well, they were both a big part of it. Certainly, Pillman did more of the mic work.
Yeah, they did get a bit in the Blondes, a lot more than he did at this stage. Anyway, the finish saw Muda give him a Hurricane Ran off the top rope, which I thought was really neat seeing Austin take. So Austin looked beat. Colonel got up on the apron, which would also lead to the finish of the next match Colonel was involved in. But Muda gave him a spinning heel kick. Austin then charged Muda and was backdropped over the top rope. Yeah. They still had the top rope rule in effect, so this caused a disqualification for Steve Austin, who retained the title at 16 minutes 20 seconds.
Yes, it was a good match. Not the greatest finish in the world.
No.
Okay, so next up we had Sting and Rick Rude, who has been autocorrected several times here to Rick Ride in my notes.
Well, that's subjective, but maybe.
So they had a hot open.
Rude looked gigantic.
Rude?
Here. I thought he looked huge.
He looked more cut or big?
Big.
I think so?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, he was...
He was a lot hairier than he was in, like, 89 WWE when he looked super cut.
Yeah.
But he looked really fucking big. Actually, speaking of which, I'd never seen Big Muta. I'd never seen the Great Muta
so
look thicker than he did. His traps were
I thought he looked
bouncing
bigger
off
at Fame for Glory, no?
He was the poor man. He fell over taking off his jacket.
He what?
He fell over taking off his jacket. He fell into the turnbuckle.
It's really sad to see, but I like his mask thing he's got.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it kind of protects him. It's kind of like the way Sting is protected by his face paint. So we had a kind of a hot opener.
This was for the International World Championship.
Yeah, I always love that name.
So
International World Heavyweight Championship.
This was the big goal.
As opposed to the local World Heavyweight Championship.
This is just fascinating when we get to the main event. I can't wait to talk about it. But anyway, this basically is what the World Championship used to be. So it's the big gold belt, but they had brought back the NWA shaped title. So essentially, Flair and Steamboat are wrestling for the belt, but it's actually the NWA looking belt. When you think about them having their feud for the title, you think about 89, but that was actually for the big gold belt, not the NWA. Yeah, which at the time, it's so confusing.
You know, there was a period where it was referred to on television as the big gold belt because they couldn't refer to it as the World Heavyweight Championship.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So we had a really hot open here. Sting kind of...
whoa. Harley Race.
Race came out. Yeah, sorry. Race came out and challenged the winner to face Vader for the International Heavyweight Championship.
He then tried to blindside Sting, but Sting got him and threw him out. Race took so many bumps this night. We took an amazing bump right over the top. Now, did this not completely telegraph the finish? You had Race come out and on behalf of the ex-heel champion for the other belt, challenge the winner of this match and then get physical with Sting.
Yeah, it did. I just was, it was just a shame Harley got up after his bump, but what can you say?
I fucking loved Harley on this show.
Okay. So it was great. It wasn't actually a great match, honestly. It's like a star and a half. Something. There wasn't much to it. Finish comes and the ref takes a bump. Vader attacks Sting. Sting fights him off. Rude goes to set up the. Oh yeah. I do remember this. Rude goes to set up the neck breaker, and Harley is supposed to come in and for the finish, but Harley, as you'd expect, was missing. So I think he was on the floor looking for charisma. So Harley Rude, he's halfway in the Rude Awakening, about to drop Sting, and he just has to kind of pause, stop, and just like hit him with a knee.
I think he gets him, then keeps him in a sleeper.
Like a front face lock, basically. Then so Harley eventually wakes from his coma, makes it to the ring, swings at Sting with a chair. Sting ducks, and Rude takes the shot. The crowd goes nuts as Sting gets the pin here. Didn't think it was the best way to start off a championship reign for a babyface, but the Hogan talk was already in full effect on this show, so Sting was very much second.
And this essentially, at this stage, had been kind of clearly recognized as the second important title. It was like this was more so the secondary title to the World Heavyweight Championship, as they were calling it. What was very sad about this was the start of the match also had Nick Bockwinkel, who's the current commissioner, come out.
Yes.
And Bobby Heenan, I was acting really mean to him. And I was like, but you lads
Bobby,
are
yeah, I remember that, yeah. So Rude got busted open hard way, by the way, by Harley Race. Just to complete, by the way.
His
watched his
promo,
missed his spot, And then he busted Rick Rude open. Just you loved Harley on the show, yeah, Neil?
I loved Harley on this show.
All right. So next up was Jack Swagger Senior against Gold Dust in the Bunkhouse match. So it's in their previous lives as Bunkhouse Buck and Dustin Rhodes. I fucking loved this match.
Now, this was the last show we'd watched before this and reviewed was Halloween Havoc, where he was feuding with Terry Funk, but Bunk was also involved. So this feud had continued on.
Yeah, got half a year.
About half a year. And when I saw Bunkhouse Buck come out, I cursed your name aloud. I said, Ken, why do you make these shows that make me have to see Jack Swagger Sr., Bunkhouse Buck all the time? About 3 minutes into the match, I realised that I had owed you an apology.
Yes. This was, I would assume, the best match he ever had. It just felt like a fight. It was
just killed
It was a street fight, basically.
It was a bunkhouse brawl.
Yes. Buck breaks a stick over over Goldust, then stabs him with it. Which is the finish of whatever Starrcade match between Tully and
Magnum TA.
Magnum Terry Allen.
He got some great colour after this stabbing.
He did. There's a great spot where Buck is kind of pulling Dustin toward the post and Dustin kicks him off. It's a spot you'd see all the time, but it takes like 4 or 5 or 6 kicks to get him off. It's like they're having a battle over. You're trying to pull me and I'm trying to get you off. It's not just, you try and pull me, I kick you, you go take your big flying bump into the post that we'd see nowadays. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's very realistic stuff here.
Yeah, I've written it's not this shiny choreographed Seth Rollins spot. Buck takes off his belt and whips Dustin with it. The crowd heat for this is just terrific.
The shit out of him.
Dustin's selling is just fantastic here. This was Shawn Michaels-esque. Buck has Dust in the corner laying in these running boots. And so Dust is kind of trapped in the corner and Buck keeps hitting him. The crowd kind of builds and builds and builds. And I guarantee you this is because they're calling on the fly. They can wait till they know this is the moment, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Instead of having it written. And at just the right point, Dust moves, Buck goes flying to the corner, and Goldust starts his comeback. He gets his revenge, and then some. Buck sells like $1 million. His arms are flailing. He's taking all these bumps.
During his comeback, he was really channeling his dad, wasn't he?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And this was perhaps the first time I've seen him where he felt like the performer he would become. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
He always felt overpushed, but by this stage, his work, he was with Goldust or Dustin Rhodes, whatever you want to call him, Dustin Rhodes. His push was always way ahead of his work, even though his work was okay when he was young.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I think we almost got to a point where his work was now ahead of his push.
Watching this match, on that note, I thought to myself, with the influence that his dad had, how did he end up leaving this company?
Because I think he got fired.
Oh.
Him and Blacktop Bully, which was Barry Darso from Demolition, did a match at Uncensored 95. The what's it called? The one in the back of a truck.
Oh God! Yes. I can't remember what it's called.
Basically, they're driving along. I watched it. They're driving along in the back of like a hay truck, fighting like on the road, and they both got colour, and the two of them, and the agent for the match were sacked, even though they'd kind of been told you probably need to get a little blood because blood was officially banned by the company at that stage. So he was on the outs with his dad as well because his dad didn't like Terry, his then wife.
Okay.
So that's kind of how he ended up where he did. And then Vince, of course, didn't want Dusty Rhodes' son, so that's where Goldust was born. Sorry, where Gold Dust was born. Okay, Dust hits his bulldog and has the pin, but the Colonel distracts him, same way as he distracted Muta. The Colonel passes. I've skipped something here. Yeah, we'll come back to it. Actually, I have written about it. So Colonel passes Buck the brass knucks, and he clocks Dustin for the pin. It's kind of weird because they hide it from the ref as though it might be a DQ, but of course it's a no DQ match.
Yeah, they forget these things sometimes.
This match was 5 stars. I've decided it wasn't actually, but it was honestly this is a 4.5 star match.
Man, it's one of
those.
They
blew the finish though.
They did blow the finish.
Yes, they
because they went to load his glove earlier.
Yeah, but but Colonel was nowhere near to give him the knucks. It was just kind of strange.
I don't know what happened.
There was like a minute of awkwardness, and then they went back to it. So it kind of gave away the finish. But I did really genuinely think this match, honest to God, I gave this 4.5 stars.
Wow.
Meltzer at the time went with 4, which was interesting because that would mean there were two matches better on this show, and not for my money there wasn't. But so Bobby, by the way, Bobby Heenan on commentary sells the fact that a Rhodes has lost a house match.
Yeah.
So well, and then he just starts cackling, which I just thought was great.
It was really
stuff.
good, yeah.
So
really,
go on,
really
anyway, what were you going to say about it?
Just in terms of like how impactful this match was on your rating, it had so many elements of things missing today. Just the physicality of it, the simplicity of it, the fact that there was no contrived moves, the back and forth, the juice.
I love the juice.
What they were wearing, just little stuff like Dustin threw the powder in his eyes and Bunkhouse went straight to his t-shirt to try and wipe it out.
Yeah.
Just everything seemed so real.
Yes, yeah.
And it was, I think that's why it had such a big impact now, you know what I mean? I think if stuff like this was still allowed, you'd watch this and you'd say to yourself, oh, this was nothing compared to that bloodbath between Ambrose and Orton in December.
I think that if Steve Austin watched this match for his podcast, he would just talk about how the work was snug and how there's no Colin spot. Even if they allowed blood, like okay. Do you remember the match between Cena and Mercy, the Last Man Standing match?
White, talking about Bray Wyatt, yes. Yeah, that was a good match though.
It was a good match, but it never didn't feel like a performance in the way that this didn't feel like a performance at all. You know what I mean? That's just down to the art of it. You know, in fact, they were just calling it in the ring that a lot of it was probably just give and take. Do you know what I mean? That wasn't called.
Oh yeah.
You know?
They just went in there and wrestled.
Yes,
for
with
sure.
novel concept. So, okay, so next we had an interview backstage. Ventura interviewed Rick Rude. Rude is furious at Vader and raced for costing him the title. And probably race for busting him open and blowing the spot. Then they have a big brawl backstage. I thought it was quite good.
The other wrestlers are trying to break it up, including Jerry Saggs desperately trying to hold his towel on, which was the only thing he was wearing beside his toothless smile.
Didn't notice that. Next match we had was the gigantic grudge match, and that's how it was announced, which was Vader against the Boss.
Now wait a minute, was it Halloween Havoc? It wasn't Halloween Havoc. No, this was their first match.
Yes, it was. We were thinking of Bash at the Beach and then another match.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
First of all, Vader wasn't Big Van Vader. I always thought he was always Big Van Vader in WCW, but he wasn't.
No.
Because I always remember when he came over to the WWF, the criticism was why Cactus Jack became Mankind, Johnny Bag became Mark Merrow, Big Van Vader just shortened to Vader, and why didn't they just let him keep it?
He was only Big Van Vader in 93. 92, 93.
Vader. So yeah. So it's this is the Boss against Big Van Vader, and
so this was after Ray Traylor had just joined WCW, and
he had a short feud with Rick Rude. Then he was the referee in the Ric Flair Vader rematch in the cage. Super Brawl.
Yeah. So he's called the Boss, and he's in Big Boss Man outfit, except it's black. And there's obviously issues with this because they have to drop the name. I'm sure you'll tell us about that.
He started off as the Boss Man. I know he started off as the Boss in full Boss Man gimmick.
Yeah.
Same colours. Then they tweaked it, and then we'll come to what they did here. So
Bobby Heenan does not stop calling him the Boss Man. Just before you
does he not?
Because Shivani keeps calling him the Boss, but of course just instinctively.
Boss Man.
Bobby Heenan calls him Boss Man. It's very hard to ask Bobby Heenan to switch it up, you know what I mean? But one more thing before I let you...
It'd be one thing if they were calling him, say, Big Bubba. But if they're calling him the Boss...
Yeah.
That's going to be very hard to
exactly. No, really impossible. Bobby Heenan's called so many Boss Man matches, and he would call him Boss Man. But one more thing before you go through this match, wardrobe-wise, I always thought it was really cool when they put Paul Bearer with Kane, that he wore a red jacket.
Okay.
And the black slacks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Harley had done it first with Vader. The red-black. Harley was wearing the most gaudy red blazer. It was incredible. The first spot in this match as well, the bump Harley Race takes. Come on, Ken.
I don't remember. What was that?
Bubba comes out to meet Vader on the stage, right?
Yeah.
And so they're just
beating the fuck out of each other.
Yeah, they're beating the whole match.
They always did in their matches.
So Harley is obviously there because Vader was just making his entrance. So Harley comes from behind Boss Man on the ramp and holds back his arms. And Vader takes a huge charge to do the running avalanche. Boss Man literally drops to his ass, like to a sitting position. So Vader jumps and the width of his legs fly over Trailer's head and shoulders, and he
flattened him.
Kills Harley Race. Kills him.
Yeah. Okay, so they're really beating each other up here. It's not the greatest match in the world, but again, like the Bunkhouse match, it felt like a scuffle. I've never seen Vader sell so much.
So early.
Yeah, and so long. And that's very much, you heard Vader talk to Steve on his podcast recently, and he would talk about how he'd make guys earn it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think that Boss Man or Boss, whatever you want to call him, really laid it in here. So at one point then, early on, they screw up a spot so dangerously that Bubba almost kills
Are you
himself.
talking about the backdrop over the top?
Yeah, so
Jesus Christ. What were they trying?
I think Bubba thinks Vader is going to catch him and maybe nail him with a power slam or dump him over the top.
Right.
Like maybe kind of catch him in like a flapjack
A
position.
flapjack. I thought I was going to neck him. I thought I was going to stun
Yeah,
him.
maybe that's what he thought. Okay, so if you imagine the like Austin, no, that wasn't the stun gun. If you imagine kind of somebody picking somebody else up for a spine buster, but instead of spine bustering them, falling backward with the opponent landing neck first on the top
Snake
rope.
guys, except on the rope inside the turnbuckle.
Yeah, but Snake Eyes, he would lift him up by his shoulder.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
So, so Bubba leaps into the air, thinking I think the Vader's going to catch him and drop his neck over the top rope. But Vader bends over for a back body drop. But by the time Bubba reaches Vader, Bubba's kind of leaping into the air, and they're a full third of the way across the ring from the ropes.
He's leaping into the air with the idea of taking a front bump rather than somersaulting.
Yes. So as he kind of comes to Vader, Vader is pushing off as if to give him the backdrop.
Yeah.
And he still thinks probably that they're going for backdrop because he's had his head facing the mat, waiting for Bubba to kind of come up for the backdrop. And I guess he feels him and he just goes for it anyway. So Bubba just basically goes hurling over the top rope and lands, on his neck, kind of on the apron. And just,
He lands his neck on the rope and then just kind of bounces and pushes himself to the outside.
It's just like, it kind of reminded me of Brock Cena in 2012 when Brock almost killed himself.
They have a very similar iffy moment later where basically Vader was going for the Vader bomb and Bubba comes up from behind and tries to power bomb him off with one arm. And so Vader pushes off with his legs with all his might, but Bubba's like, this guy's just too heavy for Bubba.
Yeah, just fall down.
So he just throws him like from the top onto his neck and shoulder.
Yeah.
It's so
okay,
horrible.
And then they try, it looks like they're going to go for a top rope superplex.
Oh yeah.
But Vader, so Vader's sitting on the top rope, but Vader, if you're going for a top rope superplex, you got to put your feet outside the ring on the ropes.
Yeah.
So that you can kind of push off.
Sure.
But Vader's feet are both still on the inside on the second rope.
Yep.
And it looks like Bubba almost just DDTs him.
Well, that's what Shivani calls it.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like that, but Vader does do a full flip. He
Yeah.
doesn't really land his head. And it's just like, what the fuck are these two at? They worked fucking hard here,
Yeah.
Bossman does a cross body as well off the top on Vader at one point, and they kind of fall down. You remember this?
Yeah.
It just was awkward.
There's a lot of sloppiness.
Oh, because you know what that was? Vader was supposed to catch him and slam him, and they went back to that spot.
Okay. Yes.
And so at one point he kind of does a cross body, but it's not. They're not planning to take the spot, so it's not proper. He's going to bounce off him and flip, but he doesn't. So anyway, they work really hard and they're really big, so it's quite a sight to see. And I thought entertainment wise, I was never less than fascinated.
Yeah,
I'd probably go like 3.5 stars. But Vader wins it with a top rope moonsault, and which you see him lining up, and I was like, he ain't gonna hit this.
Yeah,
because he so often didn't, and I thought he's not gonna pin him because they don't often have. They don't often pin the babyfaces clean.
No.
And, they had a rematch of this in July. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
But no. So after the bell, Bossman lays both of them out.
With the nightstick.
With the nightstick, yeah. So I felt like Boss kind of came off like a heel and he didn't get a huge positive reaction for it. So I actually thought that what may have happened is Steve was sitting backstage watching this and considered it a double turn. And that was the seeds for the Rosemont Horizon match between himself and Brett 3 years later.
There you go.
So fascinating then. Backstage. Oh, actually, I'll give you the Meltzer star rating for this actually as well. Big David went 3.5 stars.
Okay.
So that's identical to me. So fair enough. What would you go for that one?
I'd go about 3.
3?
Yeah, just because there was so much muck-ups.
Muck-ups, yeah, that's fair. Okay, so backstage, Brock Whittle literally takes away the Big Boss Man's gimmick. He says that what he's done, because he used the nightstick and stuff out in the ring, so he says what he's done is unacceptable, and he's gone over the top. So he just says you're no longer the boss, and takes away his nightstick, and basically this was their way of getting out of the boss man gimmick because of the pending lawsuit by the WWF. And I just felt that, obviously they had to get out of the gimmick, but I felt they did it about as well as they could have.
Yeah, no, I think this was fine.
And that brings us to the main event, and it's not 1989 anymore, I guess, was the lesson here.
Yeah,
Ricky
5 years
Steamboat
later.
and Ric Flair. They went 32 minutes.
They did.
They had a good match. I always thought that Flair's kind of starting to get back to a heel kind of vibe here.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
They're preparing him for Hogan.
Yeah, although I have to say the crowd, I think, were more with Flair.
They were.
Probably.
Yeah.
And this was the same building, apparently, that Steamboat had beaten him in for the championship, which
That's right.
I'd never known. This really could have been a really big deal, but it's not a match
Yeah,
we talked
it's
about.
at the Chi-Town Rumble. No, the thing about it is the dynamic was very strange because obviously, the idea of like both of them being faces in this far into their career, it just didn't feel like a rivalry anymore.
No.
It kind of did feel
It felt
it's
almost
just
like
a tribute match to themselves.
Do you know, it's funny, Slamboree was the next pay-per-view. I actually have to watch that. I'm putting it off because Slamboree, those shows, in those days, they brought back guys in their 50s, like, Dirty Dick Slater for a match with fucking, I don't know, name somebody, fucking, what was that dude's name? The Assassin.
Oh, God.
But they brought back guys like that, and the Slamboree was called the Legends Reunion. They'd have kind of, say, 4 WCW matches, and like they have like a Terry Funk match and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I feel like this match would have been more at home there, because even though match-wise I thought it was a fine match,
Actually, that was very good.
it didn't feel like it should have been in the main event of the pay-per-view. It really did feel almost like a Legends circuit, you know what I mean?
I think that by WCW standards in 93, 94, and especially because of the legacy of these guys within that company, I think this would have been a fine main event on most shows.
Yeah.
But I think because of the blood and guts nature, physicality of the three previous matches, that I think it was I wouldn't say a lot to live up to, but it was definitely a different flavour.
Well, what did you like? How good did you? I mean, I know that it's hard to be impartial when it comes to Mr. Flair.
No, it's not. I'd say about 4 1/4.
Really?
I'd say I'd knock 3/4 of a star off their usual 89 series.
I mean, that's actually what Meltzer went at the time.
Yeah.
I'd go 3.5 maybe.
Okay.
I thought it was good, but and as well, I think if you're going to knock 3/4 off because they're not quite at their peak from 5 years earlier, that means you're not knocking anything off for the finish. And I think that the finish,
the double pin.
Yeah, it's just so
But
stupid.
that's also something straight out of the 80s for them as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just so. I think what was it? Rude did his. Steamboat did his kind of like double chicken wing.
Yeah.
What was it, suplex?
Back
line?
suplex, yeah.
Yeah, and pinned Flair, and it was double pin, but Bockwinkel ruled in the event of a double pin. It's not a draw; the champion just wins. Which,
Yes.
if they just said it's not a draw, or if they just said it's a draw, I would have kind of been. It's kind of like Flair wins. Like, why does he win? They both are pinned.
Yeah. This is so weird though, because they hold the belt up then after this, only to give Flair the belt back. That Flair then unifies with Sting. That Flair then drops to Hogan.
Wait, they hold it up as in it's vacant?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. But then Flair gets it back, and then
Does he win it back, or does he just?
No, I think he wins. Yeah, he wins it back, and then you have to get that. You have to get those 21 reigns somewhere, right? Yeah. So he gets it back, and
because it's Slamboree he's defending.
That's off the top of my head. Yeah, he gets it back, but they do hold it up, and
then he unifies it with Sting.
Unifies with Sting to drop it to Hogan.
Isn't it amazing that they unify the championships at the Clash of the Champions on free TV in like a 9-minute match with Sting?
Yeah.
It's just weird, isn't
And
it?
it's a really weird match.
And we've seen that footage recently when we watched the Bash of the Beach.
The whole match is based. I remember that whole match is based around just interference with Sherry.
Yeah. So weird. So he drops it. So what? They vacate it, and then he.
It's on the TV, man. I'm not too sure.
I think because I know Dave in the Observer that I read was talking about how they were going to that they were going to come back with it, but I thought they were going to come back with the Slamboree, and then when I saw that Slamboree had a different match, I thought, oh okay, they moved on from it. Yeah, because Flair's in a tag at Slamboree. He's not in
right. So we've gone really long here. So closing.
I was thinking we've gone a long time. Good show all in all, though.
Any other additional footnotes?
God, I don't think I could talk any longer.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, good to have you back, Ken. We will be back on Sunday for our Mixed Martial Arts show on Dublin City at FM at 4 o'clock. Of course, you can get all the archives of that show and This Ain't Fake Brother up at thisaintfake.com. Until then, we will be back with you wrestling fans, maybe a little bit earlier next week. We'll see how it goes. But certainly 4 o'clock Sunday for MMA. This Ain't Fake Brother will be out next week. And Ken, you are simply the best.